Hey everyone, and welcome to Mortgage Minute Live, where we map out and navigate the road ahead with current housing market insights, trends, and new product updates. Today, we're here with Brian McKinney, our CEO of Benchmark. Hey, Brian.
Hey, thanks, Megan. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, hopefully you watched the commercial, and that's why you're watching today. We're excited to have you. Let's navigate a couple road signs in our current market. All right, so let's start off, Brian, with just what's happening in the world. What happened last week? What's happening this week?
Yeah, good stuff. So, I'd like to say I have all the answers and know where everything is going, but I don't think anybody knows where anything is going right now. This is such a crazy environment we're in right now. So, as expected, the Fed did raise their interest rate 75 basis points last week. I think the market had that pretty well priced in, knew it was going to happen, but it does indicate that the Fed is still concerned about inflation and where the economy is going. Last night we had elections, and here it is noon on Wednesday, and we still don't exactly know what all the results are. Those could take another 7 to 10 days, might have some runoff elections. So there's still a lot of uncertainty out there as we look to the future.
Yeah. Well, moving on that note, the future, what's your outlook on the future?
Yeah, I would.
That's a big question.
It's a big question, and I'm kind of winging it today, which is I think what a lot of us are doing right now. We're all to some degree observing what's going on and waiting for things to play out. I mean, I would describe my mood as cautiously optimistic. I've been to several conferences here in the last couple weeks. We had the TMBA here in Dallas yesterday. And there's a lot of moving parts in this whole thing. The key to it all right now is inflation. Yeah. So the Fed is looking at inflation. They've got their foot on the brakes. They're trying to slow the economy down to keep prices from running away. If you look back in history, back in the 70s, 80s, there was a phenomenon called the double dip recession, where the Fed maybe took their foot off the brake a little too soon. We went back into a recession, so I know Chairman Powell does not want to be the guy who does that and puts us into a double dip recession. But in the housing market, what's fascinating about this is we've talked about this before in some of our bridge builder slides about the shortage of housing that already exists in this country. So for the last 2 decades, we really have had a supply problem in housing, which causes all this demand, right? And in 2020, 21, people are fleeing to the suburbs, interest rates are extremely low, they couldn't build houses fast enough. Yeah. Now that rates have ticked back up, that's actually caused the home builders to slow down again, which only exacerbates the housing shortage problem. Yeah. So that's why I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. The CPI number is going to come out tomorrow, so we're going to get the latest and greatest view of what's going on with the Fed and the interest rates. And again, we've talked about this before. When we start to see inflation ease, you'll start to see the Fed ease. To what degree, to how much, is kind of yet to be seen. But CPI will come out tomorrow. Some of the economists that I listened to over the last couple of weeks, one of which being my good friend Steve Remington. He listens to Barry Habib, as I'm sure a lot of you do, and so there's a lot of opinions out there. The consensus or the opinion I hear right now is that the Fed probably begins to ease in December, maybe a 50 basis point increase instead of 75, and some have even said that could be as low as 25 basis points in the first quarter of next year. So as the Fed starts to take their foot off the brake, that's what everybody is looking for, is what they call the pivot. So when does the Fed begin to pivot from this contractionary, put your foot on the brake, slow things down, slow down inflation, to take your foot off the brake, let rates come down, let the economy run the way it's supposed to. So specific to the mortgage market, there's actually a phenomenon right now where if you look at the spreads between the mortgage-backed securities and the treasuries, so a lot of people in our business like to look at the 10-year treasury and say, oh, well, if the 10-year treasury goes up and down, that's what causes mortgage rates to go up and down. And they are correlated, but that's not exactly why that happens, right? And so right now, the spread between mortgage-backed securities and treasuries is as wide as it's been in a long time. And that's because those two products actually have different things that drive their prices. And with the uncertainty that's out there right now with the economy and the recession, if there was a recession, does that mean people aren't going to pay their mortgages? Or if rates go down, does that mean all these people that are getting mortgages today are going to refi? So because of all that uncertainty, that spread has gotten pretty wide.
Yeah.
As soon as we feel the Fed start to take their foot off the brake and they make that pivot, Steve feels that we're probably looking about 100 basis point improvement in price that happens as soon as the market signals gets that signal that the Fed is pivoting. So that's why I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that people out there, again, listen to Barry Habib, listen to Steve Remington, listen to whoever you want. Yeah. None of them have a crystal ball, but let's just say if rates got back down into the 5s next year, okay? Yeah. I'm old enough to know that 5% mortgage rates are awesome. I mean, my parents bought houses at 17.5%, right? God. So people would buy houses at 5% interest rates if they had confidence, right? And so I think that's where you get back to inflation and what's going on with prices. When people see prices for things going up, adding a mortgage payment to their life just doesn't sound like an attractive option. So where is it going? I was actually looking for some great optimistic nuggets in these last few economists that I was listening to. And I heard a really interesting observation yesterday. So as part of what goes on in the reporting of inflation and the economic news is there's a group of purchasing managers who report what prices are, right? So purchasing managers are typically the ones buying the inputs for the goods and services that are manufactured. So they're kind of on the front end of things. So the purchasing managers saw this inflation coming first. Yeah. So they're on the front end, they saw it coming first. This economist observation yesterday at the TMBA was that the purchasing managers are actually seeing signs of that easing. So to me, again, being cautiously optimistic, that's actually a good sign that if the purchasing managers are starting to report a drop in the input prices, that will eventually translate to consumer prices. Again, I was looking for any bright ray of hope I could find in this.
Give me facts. Give me details.
Give me something that I can be optimistic about. And he said that actually used car prices are declining, which yes, right. Like there's something that's actually going down right now. So if we want to be optimistic, we can say used car prices are going down.
We want to sound like used car salesmen.
Yeah, there you go. The other observations that they made was that the supply chains and the logistics are getting better. That's so good. A lot of what's driving these inflationary prices is we had a huge supply chain disruption because of COVID. Products, goods, cars all become much harder to get, but people still needed them. So when supply and demand are out of whack, that drives prices up. So the ports in Los Angeles are back to their normal shipping lines. The trucks that drive across the country are back to their normal schedules. I don't know that the people supplying the supply chain are back fully online yet. I think China and other economies are starting to really get back online now. But again, these are all things that are pointing in a positive direction. But until we see the Fed make that pivot, you won't see it come through in rates.
Okay. That's awesome. That was a great answer to that very difficult question. Remember, if you do have a question, we would love for you to drop that into the live stream chat, or you can send it to me at communication@benchmark.us, and we'll get that answered for you on next week's show. See you again next time.